They told me they were tapped out. That's the exact phrase my father used, tapped out. Like he was a guy at a poker table who'd run out of chips, not a grandfather whose 4-year-old granddaughter was being eaten alive by leukemia. That was 3 years ago. Last week, my brother called to tell me he needed a kidney, and I'm the only match. I'm going to back up, because if I just tell you what I decided, you'll think I'm either a saint or an idiot, and I'm honestly not sure I'm either one. I need you to understand what happened first, all of it. Because the thing about betrayal is that it doesn't announce itself. It creeps in wearing the face of someone who used to tuck you in at night, and by the time you recognize it, it's already taken something from you that you can never get back. My daughter's name is Ivy. Was Ivy. God, I still do that. Catch myself switching tenses and then having to just sit there for a second. She was 4 years old when she was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. The pediatric oncologist explained it to us, with this careful, measured voice, like she'd given this speech 100 times, and had learned exactly how much information a parent could absorb before they started to shut down. My husband, I'll call him my husband because that's who he was and what he was to me, the steadiest person I've ever known. He held my hand the entire time and didn't let go even when his grip got so tight it hurt. I didn't say anything. I just let him hold it. The treatment protocol was aggressive. Ivy tolerated the first round of chemo about as well as a 4-year-old can, which is to say she was miserable and small and still somehow managed to ask me every single morning if we could watch her cartoon about the rabbit. We watched it probably 300 times. I can still hear the theme song in my sleep, she responded, initially. Her numbers improved. Our oncologist was cautiously optimistic. She used that phrase a lot, cautiously optimistic, and I used to hold on to those 2 words like they were a lifeline. And then, 8 months in, Ivy relapsed. When a child relapses with all L after frontline chemotherapy, the next conversation is about bone marrow transplant. The doctor walked us through it, the matching process, the donor registry, the timeline. And then she slid a single sheet of paper across the desk, and at the top of that sheet was a number, $46,000. That was the upfront cost required before the transplant team would initiate the full workup. Insurance would cover a portion, eventually, after appeals, after fighting. But that initial deposit was non-negotiable. You pay it or your child doesn't get on the list. That's the American healthcare system. I'm not editorializing. That's just what it is. My husband and I had maybe $9,000 in savings. We'd already spent down a chunk of our emergency fund on the first treatment phase. Copays, medications insurance wouldn't cover, the weeks I took unpaid leave from my job to be at the hospital. $9,000. We needed 46. The first thing we did was call his parents. They sent $300 and a card that said they were praying for us. I'm not going to say anything else about that. Then I called mine. My parents live about 40 minutes away. They own their home outright, paid off the mortgage years ago. My father retired from a project management career. My mother worked in hospital administration for over 2 decades. They are not wealthy in the way that people imagine when they picture wealthy. But they are comfortable. They have a financial advisor. They have a retirement account. They go on a cruise every spring. I called my mother first. I told her what the doctor said. I told her the number. I told her that without this transplant, Ivy's prognosis was very poor and that the oncologist had used the word months. My mother was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Sweetheart, you know we would do anything for that little girl." And I thought, okay, we're going to be okay. But your father and I have been looking at our finances and honestly, we're in a tighter spot than people realize. The market hasn't been kind to us. We had some unexpected expenses last year. We don't have that kind of liquidity right now. I asked her how much they could do. Anything, I said. Anything helps. She said maybe 5,000. I want to tell you that I handled that with grace. I didn't. I sat on the kitchen floor after we hung up and I cried so hard, I pulled a muscle in my side. My husband found me there and just got down on the floor with me and didn't say a word. 5,000 wasn't nothing. We took it. We also launched a fundraising page, which I hated doing. I hated the exposure of it. Hated feeling like we were begging. But my daughter was dying, so I put my pride away and I posted it. People we'd never met sent money. Former coworkers, old college friends, strangers from towns I'd never been to who somehow found our page and felt moved to help. We made it to $32,000 in 6 weeks. 14,000 short. My parents gave the initial 5 and then nothing more. They came to the hospital a few times. My mother brought Ivy a stuffed elephant that Ivy named Peanut, and Ivy loved that elephant. And I can't talk about the elephant. We did not raise enough. The transplant center granted us a 3-week extension, and then another 2 weeks after that, and then they were out of extensions to give. Ivy died on a Thursday morning in October. She was 4 years and 8 months old. She had her rabbit cartoon on in the background, because I'd asked the nurse if that was okay, and the nurse said of course, and so the last sounds my daughter heard were that stupid, perfect theme song. I don't remember a lot of the weeks after. I know my husband was there. I know people brought food. I remember my mother hugging me at the funeral and saying something about God's plan, and I remember that I did not respond because I genuinely had nothing to say. We moved, not far, maybe 20 minutes, but I needed to be out of that apartment where her room was. We got a smaller. My husband went back to work. I went back to work about 8 weeks later at a nonprofit, which is where I've been since. It's quieter there. It suits me. My parents and we maintained a relationship, technically. Holiday dinners, the occasional phone call. I was cordial. I was never again warm. I don't think they noticed the difference, or if they did, they chose not to address it. My father once said that he hoped we could all move forward, and I said sure, and changed the subject. My brother, he's 4 years older than me. Always been the one my parents pointed to when they talked about success. Good job, nice neighborhood, season tickets to the football team, the whole picture. We were never particularly close. He and his wife have 2 kids, and I've always gotten along fine with my niece and nephew. But my brother and I have that sibling relationship where you love each other because you're supposed to, and you'd help each other in a genuine emergency, but you don't actually know each other that well. I found out about the house 18 months after Ivy died. It came out sideways, the way those things do. My mother mentioned something about my brother's new place, and I said, "What new place?" And she got this look. I know that look. I've known it my whole life. It's the look she gets when she said something she didn't mean to say and is trying to figure out how to walk it back. He'd bought a house. 4 bedrooms, nice suburb, good school district. My parents had helped. Substantially helped, was the phrase she used. I pressed her. I kept pressing until she told me. $120,000. They'd given my brother $120,000 for a down payment on his house. I sat with that number for a long time. I did the math. I have done the math approximately 10,000 times since then. It's not a thing I can stop myself from doing. And I thought about 46,000. I thought about 14,000. I thought about 3 weeks of extensions and nurses who let little girls watch their shows and stuffed elephants named Peanut. $120,000. I did not confront my parents that day. I went home, I told my husband, I watched him go very still in the way he does when he's furious and trying not to show it. We sat on the couch for a long time without talking. Then he said quietly, "What do you want to do?" And I said I didn't know yet. I went low contact after that. Not no contact, but close. I stopped initiating. I answered calls sometimes. I skipped Thanksgiving that year. My mother texted me a few times asking if I was okay, and I said yes, I have just been busy. I was not busy. I thought about confronting them often. I wrote the speech in my head while I was driving, while I was in the shower, while I was trying to fall asleep. I imagined saying the number out loud to them, $120,000, and watching their faces. I imagined asking them to explain the math, to show me how that added up to tapped out. I never made that call. And then, about 8 months ago, my brother ended up in the emergency room. He'd been having symptoms for a while, apparently. Fatigue, swelling, the kind of things that are easy to brush off as stress or getting older. He finally went in when the swelling got bad enough that he couldn't ignore it. They ran tests. Then they ran more tests. His kidneys are failing. Both of them. The specific diagnosis involves a condition that had been progressing for years without obvious symptoms. The kind of thing that, by the time it announces itself clearly, has already done significant damage. He's been on dialysis. He needs a transplant. My parents called me together on speaker, the way they do when they have something important to say. My mother did most of the talking. They explained his condition. They explained the transplant list, the wait times, the reality that cadaveric donors can take years and he doesn't have years, not without his quality of life deteriorating severely. They explained that living donation was the best option. And then my father said, "We had all of us tested, and, well, we're not matches. But sweetheart, they tested you and the preliminary results." I said, "I know." His care team had already reached out to me directly a few weeks before. I'd already been to the appointment. I already knew I was a potential match pending further evaluation. What I hadn't told anyone was that I knew. There was a silence on the phone. My mother said, "Honey, it's your brother." I said I needed time to think. She called back 2 days later. My father called the day after that. My brother's wife sent me a long text that I read twice and didn't respond to. My brother himself called once, and I let it go to voicemail, and his message was short and not what I expected. He didn't beg, didn't guilt me, just said he understood this was a lot to ask and he was sorry, and that he loved me and that he'd support whatever I decided. I played that voicemail 4 times. My husband did not tell me what to do. He asked me questions instead. What do I actually want? What will I be able to live with in 10 years? Not what do I owe anyone? Not what does anyone deserve? What will I be able to live with? I thought about Ivy. I thought about $46,000. And then $120,000. And I thought about the look on my mother's face when she realized she'd said too much. I thought about sitting on the kitchen floor. I thought about the phone call where my mother said, "You know we'd do anything," and what anything apparently meant. I also thought about my brother's voicemail. "I'm sorry. I love you. I'll support whatever you decide." I thought about my niece and nephew, who are 7 and 9 and have no part in any of this. I thought about who I was before all of it, and who I've been since, and whether I wanted to keep being her. I called the transplant coordinator. I completed the full evaluation. I met with the surgical team, reviewed the risks, asked every question on my list and some that occurred to me on the drive over, and then I called my parents. I told them I was going forward with the donation. My mother started crying. My father said, "Thank you, sweetheart," in a voice that cracked, and I felt something complicated move through me that I'm still not entirely sure what to name. Then I said, "I need you to understand something. I'm doing this for him, not for you. Not because we're okay. Not because I've forgiven you. I've thought about what it would mean to walk away from this, and I can't do it. Not because of you, but because of who I want to be. Because Ivy would have grown up to be someone who helped people. And I'm not going to let what you did make me into someone she wouldn't recognize." My mother started to say something, and I said, "I'm not finished." I told them I knew about the $120,000. I said the number out loud, finally, after more than a year of turning it over in my head. I told them that I had done the math too many times to count, and that I understood what that math meant, and that I needed them to understand that I understood it. that I wasn't confused, that I wasn't going to pretend that it didn't happen, or that it doesn't mean what it means. My father said very quietly, "We know." There wasn't much else to say after that. The surgery was 6 weeks ago. I'm still in recovery. Living donation is not nothing, and I won't pretend it is. There's real discomfort, real limits on what I can do, and it'll be a few more months before I'm fully back to normal. My husband has been there for every single day of it. He took 2 weeks off work. He learned all my medication schedules and makes me eat breakfast even when I don't want to. My brother's numbers are good. His body accepted the kidney. His care team is pleased with how things are progressing. He called me from the hospital 3 days after the surgery, and I answered and he cried. And I didn't, and that was okay. We talked for about 20 minutes about nothing in particular. His kids, my job, a TV show we both apparently watch. And it felt like something shifting, though I couldn't tell you exactly what. My parents have tried to reach out more since then. My mother sent flowers when I came home from the hospital. My father texted me once a week for a month. Last week they asked if they could come visit. I told them I'd let them know. I haven't let them know yet. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I found peace through all of this, or that doing the right thing fixed anything, or that love conquers whatever it is that my parents did. I don't think love conquers that. I think some things damage what they damage and leave marks that don't fully fade, and the work isn't to pretend the marks aren't there. It's just to decide what kind of person you're going to be despite them. Ivy would have been 7 this spring. 7. Second grade, probably losing teeth, probably furious that her little kid cartoon had gotten boring. I think about her most mornings. I think about her every time I see a small kid doing something completely ordinary, throwing a tantrum in a grocery store or running too fast across a parking lot. And I feel it. That complicated grief that never gets smaller, just more familiar. I don't know what happens next with my parents. I genuinely don't. Some days I think I'll eventually find a way back to something, a version of them in my life that I can tolerate without it costing me too much. Other days I think the math is just the math, and there's no version of forward that makes it different. What I know is that I did what I could live with. I showed up for my brother. I said the true thing out loud to the people who needed to hear it, and I woke up the next morning, still recognizing myself in the mirror. That's what I've got. For now, that's enough.